Hey YouTube, this is Wrestling Park Fan 62. This is the state of AEW. Now, with AEW, there is a lot of things that have to change. For one of the biggest things people are invested in with this is proper storylines and not just banger matches and banger matches and banger matches. I'm not trying to sound like JB from New York. But the other issue is there are so many people on the card for AEW, and the fact maybe 25% of them get used is astounding. So you have people like, Julia Hart, Sky Blue, Thekla, I think that's how you say it. They're the ones getting used constantly. And then you have people just sitting and catering every week where you're like, okay, I want to get used here. And then as Tony starts adding more and more people into the show, some of the people that were in the middle are going down fast. But then you have people who have been known to cause problems. Someone like Britt Baker, who hasn't been seen or heard from since November. Mind you, she was supposed to start a feud with Serena Deeb. Essentially, Britt came out. She did her match. She won. Serena came out onto the stage. Britt was saying nobody cares, and we haven't been seen or heard from since. That is the main problem. You're having that sort of thing happen. And Tony needs to learn how to be a booker and say, you're going to do this. This is my company. I'm paying you to go out and wrestle every week. Or I'm paying you to wrestle when you're needed. But instead, he wants to be everybody's friend. And barely says no for anything. That is the main problem. You need to put the friends aspect aside and be a booker. This is your show. Am I saying I could book AEW better? Absolutely not. But when you have 100 and something people on the roster, close to 200 at this point, and you're only booking, enough for Dynamite and Collision, minus pay-per-views, you're looking at maybe 100 people at max for 2 shows. Max is the key word. Unless you start doing, 6-man tag team matches, 8-man tag team matches, 10-man tag team matches, etc. Unless you're doing that, the show is not good. There is a reason why NXT, which is a developmental show, which comes on in 47 minutes, has beaten AEW like 55 out of 59 weeks now, or whatever that number is, since November of last year. AEW's only beat NXT 4 times since November. And the only reason why that has been, 2 or 3 of them have been TV specials, and one of them was because NXT was down 1 week. Mind you, this is AEW's A show. When you're getting beat by a developmental show, there is a problem. That is like the Louisville Bats beating out the Cincinnati Reds in ratings 1 week, and then 2 weeks, and then 3 weeks, and then 4 weeks, etc., etc., etc. Their average ratings have been anywhere from 550,000 people to a little over 700,000. When not long ago, about a year and a half ago, they were in the 800s and then 900s and a million. And now they're averaging between 5 to 7. Something has to change here, or otherwise, who knows what is going to happen. I've completely lost interest in AEW. There are certain people I like that I will watch on YouTube about it, but I don't watch the show. Meanwhile, you have Tony coming over here saying, oh, everything's great. Everything's great in AEW. And, using the word great 25 times in a matter of like 5-10 minutes. There is a reason why people are starting to turn on AEW. Look at TNA. They have started doing great numbers again. Now, maybe not necessarily on TV because of where they're at this point, at least in attendance-wise. They're starting to book slightly bigger arenas. AAA, which had 19,942 people. That was essentially a free show online. Meanwhile, you have AEW over here about to go into a pay-per-view weekend of Forbidden Door, which already seems like a concept that's dead, because the Forbidden Door has been something where, somebody you wouldn't think who would wrestle in AEW wrestles, even if it's for one match. We've had 2 now. And this makes the 3rd. There is a reason why someone like Stephanie Vaquer, however you say her last name, chose not to sign with AEW and went with WWE. And that was over a year ago. One of the main reasons why a lot of the people in AEW stay with AEW than going to WWE, CMLL, wherever, is because Tony just throws money at them, like it's nothing. And essentially be like, oh, if I give you another $50,000, will you stay? Most of the time they'll be like, yeah. That is the thing. And then the fact, there's no creative meetings every week. There's no, backstage meetings every week. There's no production meetings every week. Now, there may be backstage meetings and all that other stuff, but there is no meetings for production. And it shows. That is the problem. Am I saying WWE in this situation is better? Absolutely not. But production-wise, among other things, it shows why, they're selling out arenas. They're having these humongous gates and stuff like that. The other thing about AEW is this. When they first started, they were selling out 25,000 plus seat arenas. Mind you, they sold out the United Center in Chicago over a rumor of Punk coming back on Rampage, which was essentially the B show at the time. I think Collision was about to start about that time or close to it. Rampage is a dead show now. You know, it's been thrown aside. But the fact that he sold out United Center over a rumor that Punk could be there said something. Now they're barely selling out concert halls. You know, when they were in Chicago not long ago, it looked like they were in a abandoned medieval times building. And these buildings are barely holding 1,500 to 2,000 people from 25,000 not long ago. I don't know if people get that. That is a humongous drop. And then for a while, they were getting, 25,000 seat buildings and only seating 5 to 6. And then AEW had to do all this work to be like, oh, hey, there's more people here. And then finally, AEW just started booking smaller buildings. And the only time they book large buildings is for something like, their big pay-per-views a year, which I totally get. The fan base who likes the indie style of wrestling, which is the AEW type, is far less than the WWE. If you are a fan of AEW style, which is more the indie style, the hardcore style, you're not going to like the WWE, which is more family oriented and playing it safe. Am I saying WWE doesn't do, blood and all that? No. They will when it needs to be, like Punk Drew McIntyre last year at Hell in a Cell. But they're not doing it every week on television. There is going to be a point where there are going to be fans and wrestlers alike who eventually are going to say enough. And I think that is what we're starting to see now. Is a lot of people are just like, enough of this. I don't want this. Go away. AEW has to drastically change in this, or otherwise they're not going to see a decade. And that is a scary thought. Because Tony can have all the money in the world, which he does. But just because you have all the money in the world, you can pay these people, $1 million a year. $500,000 a year. Until you can get a fan base that will tune in every week, every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, or every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, you're going to have problems. And unfortunately, I think AEW is starting to see the stint of those problems now. As there was a span of like 2 months, 3 months of bad television. And, you were getting record lows every week, record demo lows, and they still have not quite recovered that, even though the television, from what I've heard, has gotten better. It's only going to get worse now with college football 2 weeks away. And then NFL 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks away. That is the other problem. Tony's head does not stick with just AEW. It sticks with the Jaguars. It sticks with his soccer team over in England. Tony has so many different things going on. He needs to either hire somebody to focus on just AEW, or he focuses on AEW and leaves the Jags and the football team or the soccer team to somebody else, like his dad or whatever. That is the thing. Because you cannot, write down scripts for AEW and then look over and see, oh, we got a game this week versus the Steelers. That is not going to work well. What I'm saying is there has to be a lot of changes coming, or otherwise this is going to end very badly.